Hey guys, I'm Andrew McCorman. Welcome to Web3 TV. In today's video, I'm with Jeremy Britton, the founder and CEO of Boston Trading Co., the world's first cryptocurrency mutual fund. And we're going to find out how to navigate volatile cryptocurrency markets so that you have a greater chance of making more money and mitigating potential risks from your investments. But before we do, make sure you register to watch every episode of Web3 TV here, where we share inspiring stories of all things Web3, making a difference to the world. All sorted? Okay, let's go.
Welcome to another episode of Web3 TV. And again today, it's our pleasure to bring you Jeremy Britton from the Boston Trading Co. And today he's going to be telling us all about how to navigate volatile crypto markets, which I think we all need at times like this. So Jeremy, in terms of managing a volatile crypto market, what can we do and how do we navigate them safely?
There's two things you'll need, only two things, and they're both called diversification. So it's very, very simple. It's just in good markets, people forget it. And in bad markets, people forget it and they need constant reminding. So there's people that you'll meet who've been investing for 40, 50 years. And they'll tell you like, oh, I had all this money and then I blew it. I'm like, what did you invest in the week before you blew it? You know, they always got to diversify. Like, okay, we're doing ancient history, but some of the people sort of watching this will remember or may remember there was something that went on back in 2001 called a plane crash. So, you know, markets were going well. We had the 1999 tech wreck when a lot of the dodgy internet companies had gone bankrupt and the good internet companies had gone up. And then 2000 was sort of like a happy year for the stock market. End of 2001, some idiots flew planes into a building and the market panicked. I panicked a little bit myself because about a month earlier, I was only a young fella. This is 20 whatever years ago. I was only a young fella back then. A month before then, I had borrowed $500,000 from the bank and put into the stock market. So you can imagine at 5 in the morning, waking up and seeing these buildings on fire, I was kind of panic stricken because we all knew like no one's going to travel for a while. You know, no one's going to be calling their travel agent for a while. No one's going to be going on planes for a while. Maybe there's going to be a war against the terrorists who did this, which is going to drag on. And obviously in wars, stock markets generally don't go well. But the interesting thing is, thank God, I was actually smart enough to have insured my stocks and shares because I'd borrowed from the bank. Right? If you're borrowing from the bank to buy a house, you want to insure that house or that car or that whatever in case it catches on fire. So I'd insured my stocks and shares. So the ones that went down, I could simply just hand them back to the bank and say, look, I'm walking away from it. But while the insurance companies and the travel companies went down, telcos went up, grocery stores went up, because people in other countries were phoning their friends in America to say, are you all right? Are you near the crash site? You know, I love you. I might never talk to you again because there's going to be a war on, the endless war on terror. And people were panicking and they were stocking up on groceries. They were buying tinned foods. They were buying water. So at the same time as half the market was going down, the other half was going up. And if you held both like I did, then it actually balanced out. And if you had insurance like I did, then you weren't losing on the ones that lost. So diversification is always your friend. And you'll see people who have got those off-the-shelf superannuation funds and things like that. It's like 60% stocks and shares, 40% bonds. But in the stocks and shares, there's different divisions. There might be mining companies, there might be telephone companies, there might be, you know, manufacturing companies, retail companies, internet companies, whatever. Because every now and then, the proverbial is going to hit the fan. It might not be as obvious as a plane crashing into a building. It might simply be a rate hike. And people go, oh, the interest rates are going up. The banks are going to make less profit because no people are going to be going to get loans. The bank stocks will go down, but something else will go up. The interest rates are lowering, maybe retail spending will increase. You know, they've just found a new seam of coal, then obviously the coal miners are going to go up, but also the people who make the digging equipment, they're going to be making money. So what I love to say, there's always a boom on somewhere. And when the US started invading other countries and blowing them up, Obviously, it was a bad time to hold real estate in Afghanistan. But what it was a good time to hold was, again, the earth-moving companies, because after the US blew up the embassies or whatever they were blowing up, these trucks and diggers had to go in, move all the rubble, and then someone had to start rebuilding again. And the contracts usually went to the US companies, funnily enough. So I'm not bagging the US. I'm just saying somebody made a lot of money when there's chaos. And there's always a little bit of chaos going on somewhere. So in Australia, we've got the 4 big banks. If one of them goes bankrupt, it's very sad for you if you bank there, but all the thousands of people who used to bank there are now going to have to go to the other 3 banks. So those guys are going to start making money. If McDonald's shuts down permanently, Burger King or Hungry Jack's is going to make an absolute fortune. So there's always a plus side. Doesn't matter what happens in the world, what wars, what chaos, there's always a plus side somewhere. If you're super intelligent, if you're like 10,000 IQ, you can be ahead of that and making more money than the average person. If you're not, or you just don't have any time, that's where you diversify, because not everybody wants to be calling their broker and saying, oh, look, such and such has just happened. Sell all this and buy all that. Like 3 a.m, you don't have time to do that. Or if you've got a family, or if you've got a business, or if you've got a hobby, if you like playing golf, and you don't have time to be making those phone calls. And that's where you have a diversified portfolio and know, okay, my airline stock just went down, but 3 other things went up. My insurances just went down, but my banking stock just went up. And that's always the way. Diversify, diversify, diversify. Even with people who have got properties, I see this all the time. Like they scrimped and saved to buy their first house, and they're paying off their house, and all their fortune is tied up in their house. And they say, well, what if the property market tanks? What if the terrorists move into the house across the road from you? Or what if the council wants to reclaim some of the land to put in a railway line or a sewerage or something like that? You're stuffed. So you've always got to have a little bit more money somewhere else, because let's face it, you probably bought your house to live in for 20 years. You're not going to sell it next year. But if the value of your house has gone down, you can't borrow against that to try and do something else. Particularly if the housing market goes down, usually the stock market goes up within 12 months. So sometimes when the housing market goes down, you want to actually borrow against something and buy a few stocks and shares. And the reverse is true. When the stock market goes down, the housing market usually goes up. So by diversifying and having both, you're always in the right place at the right time. And you've always got something that you can sell off, or always got something that you can borrow against. Because you can also borrow against your stocks and shares. You can also borrow against your crypto portfolio without selling it. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. They're familiar with property. I can borrow against my house and I can go and buy a car. But you can actually borrow against your cryptocurrency and go and buy a car as well. And that means you don't need to sell your crypto, which is great if it's going to go up. And also you don't trigger any capital gains tax issues because you didn't sell it. You just used it as an asset to borrow against. But always diversify. Always, always, always.
Great advice, Jeremy. We talk about volatility in the stock market and the property market. Does the crypto market follow suit, or is there other reasons for it in the crypto space?
I think we talked about last week a little bit of volatility, and it's mostly, it's mostly exaggerated when there's less people in the market. So if there's a panic going on, one of the exchanges is closed down, or there's even rumors of an exchange that's having liquidity crunches, people are going to start selling their crypto because they're panicking, and that's okay. But when there's a lot of people, they start to see value. Like right now, I'm not going to buy a share in Tesla Motors for anything over $300, right? I don't care what the price is, $800, $900, $10,000. If it drops down to $300, I'll buy it. If it doesn't, I'm not going to buy it. And there's going to be people out there who will actually go on this, I guess you'd call it a stock picking exercise or a value-adding exercise where there's a price where they will buy. And so, we've seen Bitcoin at like $60,000, $70,000. We've seen Bitcoin at $16,000. We've seen Bitcoin at $10,000. And there's a certain price where people will jump in and buy it, and that pushes the market back up. So whether it's stocks, shares, property, whatever you have, if you've got an old car, there's a certain price where even the guy who's just going to turn it into scrap metal, there's a certain price where someone is going to jump in and buy it. But the more people you get in the room, the more chance you got of getting a higher price because people start to outbid each other. And because there's so many people in the stock market, and you might say, look, I don't own any stocks and shares, but you do, because you've invested in a company that buys stocks and shares for you, whether that's your insurance company or your 401k or your superannuation or whatever. These guys are doing the investment for you. So the more people in the room, the less volatility you're going to have, which sounds kind of nice, but also you miss out on the opportunity for those 10,000% gains unless you're really, really laser focused and spending 4 hours a day researching companies. You probably won't find those things. They say 1 year in the crypto markets is like a decade in the stock market, because my best ever year in the stock market in 30 years was the year I made 860%. That was my best year. But as I said last time, I've made more than 10,000%, 13,000% 4 times in cryptocurrency in 1 year. So it's possible, because there can be a lot of volatility, but those days will not be around forever. There's 4 or 5% of people owning crypto at the moment. Once it's 10, 15%, the volatility will calm right down. You won't get the drops, but you won't get the big peaks either. So it's something to look forward to, but also something to not look forward to.
Excellent. And Jeremy, if I was looking to diversify across crypto, so for example, some of the more the bigger ones, and also some of these potential for the bigger returns, are there any types of coins that you'd recommend to put into that portfolio?
If you were building your own portfolio, I'd go back to the COIN acronym. So the C-suite, the offering, the investors, and the network. And if you want to build your own portfolio, that's the way to do it. I would say probably have at least 10, no more than 30. Because when you've got more than 30 coins, you start to forget what you have. You could probably name 6 brands of sneaker, but you couldn't name 30 brands. There's a lot more than 30 brands of sneakers. There's a lot more than 30 brands of cars, but most people couldn't name it. So when it gets to the stage that's too big for you to remember, then you're going to start to drop the ball, because you won't realize that Cardano has just gone down or Polygon's just gone up or whatever. So if you keep it, at least 10, and again, diversifying into different areas. So there's different cryptocurrencies that do different things. There's a lot of sport-related coins. And so let's say you're invested in the golf coin and the football coin and the baseball coin and the something else coin, and all of a sudden there's this massive scandal through the World Cup, or there's a massive scandal through the World Series or something like that. All of your coins are now worthless, or if not worthless, you won't be able to sell them for a long time. You've got to wait for the scandal to blow over. So diversifying in there and saying, okay, I might have some sporting one because I like sports. I might have a bit of Bitcoin because Bitcoin is like gold. It's always good when the rest of the market goes down. I might have a bit of this one because this is a backbone coin like Ethereum or Polygon or Solana, where they're building things on top of it. I might have a digital gaming coin because people like to play online games. And then no matter what scandal hits, you've got a chance that you're going to come out the other side of that. But for people who want more diversification, or people who don't have time, obviously that's why we created Boston Coin. That's why there's people out there who have got a managed fund where someone will actually do it for you. And you can go on holidays, you can play with your family, you can go away to the beach, have a game of football, whatever. Know that someone else is actually sitting behind the computer and watching all the lines go up and down. That's why they get paid 2% a year. So you can relax.
Have you had any rug pulls in your managed fund?
We haven't had one. So in 7 years, I'm very proud to say we haven't had any rug pulls. We've never bought into any scam coins. We've never bought anything dodgy. Dodgy spelled DOGE, of course, because we run through that 4-point system. Now, having said that, of course we've made losses. Absolutely. Any investor has made a loss. So we might have bought something at $10, it's gone down to $7. And we go, you know what, we're getting out now because we can see there's worse to come for this one. And we want that money to put into something else while that's going up. So yeah, as long as your wins outweigh your losses, then you're going to be fine. But it's very, very difficult if you've got something that's gone to zero. Very, very difficult. Now, we've had a couple of, I guess, questionable decisions by other companies. And sometimes it's an exchange or a platform that actually freezes your money or takes your money and disappears. And a lot of people got burned by that. So we've had some of our competitors, and I won't mention any names, Three Arrows Capital, Digital, Voyager, these kind of guys, who disappeared or shut down or had their own funds frozen. And Three Arrows, poor guys, they had 40% of their money invested in Terra Luna, and Terra Luna went to zero. And I sort of looked at that and I felt so sorry for these guys, because these are our peers. We're playing against each other, but they were good players. And how did you put 40% of your money into the one coin and that one coin disappeared? We had less than 2% of our money invested in that, and we jumped out of it. We made a loss, but 98% of our money was safe. They failed the fundamental rule of diversification. You should never have more than 10% of your stuff into one thing. And even when we made the big gains, like I said, we made 13,000% on Solana and Matic and a couple of others. We put 1% of the portfolio in there. And we go, if we lose 1%, it's okay. We're 99% okay. It was a bit of a risk for us, but a calculated risk because we did our homework. And then all of a sudden, 1% of the portfolio becomes 15% of the portfolio. And we go, wow, if we lost 1%, we didn't care. But if we lose 15%, that's hard to recover from. So what we did is we sold off half of it and then we rebalanced it. And then we go, okay, if we lose 5 to 7%, that's okay. But that coin's still going and it's basically free money because we've diversified, excuse me, into the other ones. And that's what you should do. When you win at the casino, you take your money back off the table, put your own money back in your pocket and you play with the house money. Because if you lose it, it doesn't matter. But if you're sensible, you'll be diversified amongst different things. So, we haven't had a rug pull. We've had lots of wins, but we just follow the rules. I mean, I'm not a genius, but I was taught by geniuses. I was taught by people who've been in the market since the 1950s. I've only been in the market since the early 1990s. But I learned a lot of lessons and I used the 200-year-old charts. You never know when there's going to be a black swan event like a COVID or a world war or a plane crash or whatever, celebrity sex scandal. There's always going to be something and you want to protect yourself against what you can't see happening.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jeremy. That's some really great insights, and we've got a lot to take away so we can safely navigate the crypto markets now. And diversification certainly sounds like the theme of the day. So thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, I'll only use that word like 19 times. So.
Well, there it is, guys. I hope you enjoyed this Web3 TV episode. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments below. And remember, if you'd like to watch every episode of Web3 TV, visit the link below or subscribe to our channel. And remember to hit the bell icon so that we can notify you every time a new episode is released. I'm Andrew McComb, and I look forward to sharing more inspiring Web3 TV episodes making a difference to the world. I'll see you soon.